All right, guys.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's Rebuild California Town Hall. And as you can see, we need a lot of rebuilding. I won't say some of the sewer systems to put maybe some of the people in the Capitol in, but I want to say in our opening video here, well, I'm very proud to have Amy on the show tonight, but I do want to remind everybody, please, there is no cussing. Words like Nathan Fletcher should not be used continuously on the air. But the reason I'm in a hotel room tonight is not because I've become homeless, one of the 160,000 people that Gavin Newsom can't solve. I'm up here to stand with Orrin tomorrow, and the theme of our show tonight is we the people standing up for what we believe in because the politicians do not listen. Orrin, tell them why I'm sitting in a hotel room here in the alleged state capital of California.
Because tomorrow, between 11 and 2, we're holding a rally at the state capitol on the west steps of the Capitol to stand in unity and show our resolve as a people to protect our fundamental rights, to petition our government, and to recall government officials. To the ability for us to hold government officials accountable through the recall process is under attack. Now, let me give some background. California has a super majority single party rule. Our founding fathers put separation of powers they incorporated separation of powers into our government to prevent the consolidation of power. And when you have when you have all three branches of government controlled by a single political party, that the lines between the different branches of government begin to disappear. And you no longer have the environment or the notion of a representative government. You have a single party rule. The elected officials begin to basically turn a deaf ear to the needs of their constituents. And the only mechanism left in the system to bring balance back to the system is the power of the people to self-govern and to recall elected officials who don't do their job. So we, the people, have become one of the biggest threats to this power structure that they've created in Sacramento, and they want to eliminate our ability to self-govern. They want to restrict our ability to recall government officials because we are the only thing left to hold them accountable.
And it's amazing looking through this here to understand the history of the recall process. The recall process wasn't passed by the magical legislature in 1913. There were two things proposed to the public. One is that we have initiatives and that we have recalls. And they passed according to the government document, and I'll get to that in a second, that they're putting out today, by like 76% way back when. So now it seems
over 76%. It was, yeah.
It was over 76%. Thank you for telling me. It was like 76.3, but Orrin is absolutely correct. And it's interesting because now, as you saw earlier, they walked the line, as they did during the recall election, of just changing the rules to fit their agenda. And it's time we, the people, stood up and said no more. And I was telling Orrin before the show, I said, I'm looking at this long list of Professor Aranis and formerly politicians that are testifying tomorrow, but nobody from the people. You would think that Orrin Heatley and maybe even Mike Netter, who just ran a statewide recall representing the people of California, would be invited in to discuss with the legislature that I believe we elected, put that down, that I believe we elected to give our commentary on it for a people representation. Instead, we have a long list of various people, including some recall experts, who I find rather funny because they've probably never actually done a recall, but they studied it quite well, testifying as to what their opinion is. Now, I'm going to go on my rant one more second, Orrin, whether you like it or not, okay? One of the things to understand that I am so tired of hearing, and one of the most nauseating things I'm going to say tonight, besides Nathan Fletcher, is LA Times. The LA Times, which has a circulation of about 200,000 compared to 6 million New York Times, is actually quoted in some of their statistics in the document they're using tomorrow. No bias there. And some of the quotes that they use are saying, again, that the California threshold is a wee bit low, that it's only 12% for statewide of the people that voted for governor last time, and that many of the states like Washington and Colorado are 25%. I'd like to remind everybody out there and get the opportunity, and we will be reminding them in front of the Capitol tomorrow, inviting you to join us, that that's 12% of a lot of people. So for anybody out there who's a recall expert, I challenge them to go out and gather 2.1 in writing written signatures. Oddly enough, the only other state which has a threshold near ours, 15%, is Illinois, which has a really large population. So many of these other dynamics which go into place that have to do with the recall, because we, the people, have the politicians running scared, they don't want to talk about. They simply do what they always do. They want to change the rules of the game, to Oren's point, to protect the power position of the supermajority, because God forbid we have open discussion in our democracy/republic. Right, Oren?
They're no longer working for the people, but they're protecting the power structure that they serve.
Absolutely. And there's so much out there. We could go on for a long time. But I want to...
Folks, we have a great show tonight.
But yep, I want to get to a couple things. One, the documents that we're referring to that Oren pulled down are going to be posted on our newly opening Rebuild California website at about 10 o'clock tonight. So you can read them, and you can, I believe, find the links how you too can send in comments just like Oren's sending in. So we invite everybody to participate, because the California Constitution should not be changed by a supermajority with our right to take the state back. We do have a great show tonight, because people like Oren, myself, all of us on the Rebuild team stand up for California. And I was amazed at one of the people I met who's standing up starting in San Diego, which is Amy Reichert, who is actually, I want to give you kudos opening here, because you're the first person bright enough, Amy, of the God knows how many shows we've done, to put your website up behind you so people know how to find you. Thank you very much, because usually we're typing it in, telling the people to put it at the end. Amy, tell us a little bit about Reopen San Diego, what you stand for, what you're doing, and how did you get here from there?
Well, everybody remembers the time when Gavin Newsom shut us all down, shut down schools, shut down businesses harder than any other state. And during that time, Reopen San Diego was just a little small Facebook group. And then we actually decided to get together in person. And we first met at Liberty Station, appropriate name. And we just wanted to process what these tyrannical lockdowns were doing to us and to our kids. Our kids were trapped in front of screens in Zoom school, while Gavin Newsom's kids were in private school. And as we started processing this, there were stories part of this group. Like, there was a restaurant owner that was just completely devastated, losing everything. There was a single mom in the group who had to quit her job and go on food stamps so that she could homeschool her kids. So finally, about 11 months ago, we had our very first rally, Save San Diego. And the reason why we did that was because Gavin Newsom wanted to put us in the purple tier, the most restrictive tier. And from then on, we've had multiple rallies and marches and press conferences, all to fight against these unconstitutional lockdown orders. And one of my favorite rallies was in December, and it was called All I Want for Christmas is Freedom. And if everybody remembers, that's when we had 10 o'clock curfews, and Gavin Newsom canceled Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we started with 5 people, and now we're 5,000 email subscribers, but we have a much larger reach with social media too.
You know, it's interesting. You bring up a great line I used to use. Apparently, COVID, Gavin Newsom must have bought on Rolexes because the virus knew not to come out till 10 o'clock at night. I never really quite understood that rule, right? It's like, well, be home by 10. It's like, because COVID's coming out. Apparently, COVID is nocturnal. This was a big breakthrough in scientific discovery by the California government here. You know, explain to us too, or not tell us about, you know, it's interesting because we have so many people standing up for words basically pro-choice to whether or not they want to get the vaccine. And I know you did this big rally down in San Diego. There was just one in LA, in fact, this week with the police department firefighters, I believe.
So not only were we for the safe reopening of schools and businesses, but we were also for mask choice in schools and for teachers and for businesses. And we also have pushed back against these vaccine passports that we're seeing in Los Angeles and San Francisco, where you literally cannot get your hair done in Los Angeles unless you can produce a vaccine passport. So now what's happening is total insanity from Gavin Newsom. What he has said on October 1st is that he wants all students that go to California schools to receive the vaccine, right? And so we believe in choice. We're not anti-vax, we're anti-mandate. And so not only have we stood up for parents, I have a 10-year-old, I also have a 22-year-old who just graduated from college. But last Friday, and you saw the video earlier, and that was a sergeant from the San Diego Police Department. We also stand behind our first responders, and firefighters, police officers, lifeguards actually came to reopen San Diego, and they said, you know what, we've never done a press conference before. Can you do one for us? Can you organize one for us? And so we had San Diego police officer wives who actually spoke. We had firefighters and their spouses. And then surprise, we had a sergeant from the San Diego PD actually speak. So we promised whistleblowers, and we brought them.
You know, it's sad. It really is. And it's also kind of, I don't even know the correct word for it on the air, but this obnoxious lack of transparency with Newsom with the unions. Example would be the prison guards, right? Said, we don't want to get the vaccination. We don't want it to be mandatory. Why Newsom has mandated it for a lot of people, supposedly caring about prisoners and letting them out. Yet Newsom stood with the prison unions, which I'm sure had nothing to do, allegedly, with the prison unions donating $1 million to his Defend the Crown campaign. It's gotten to the point where they don't even care anymore. Oren, I'd like to weigh in real quick. I don't know if Amy knows this or not even, but what just happened with the SEIU, the Service Workers Union?
Well, we had, so Larry Richard Brown was elected president to the largest union in California, the SEIU Local 1000. They have nearly 1 million members on their roster. And he was elected on a platform to remove the union from politics, to not spend their money on political endeavors, and to not support our governor. But Alma Hernandez, or Ada Hernandez.
It's Alma, you got it right the first time. Don't think twice.
She was the outgoing president, and she had donated $6 million just before she left office. She held an emergency board meeting, and they ended up donating from the news sources that we have. $6 million of their union dues to the governor's Defend the Crown campaign. I like that term, Mike. I think that's that's a great term. So she misappropriated the union dues, spent them in an area where their membership didn't approve of. But lo and behold, Karma and Justice, both are twin sisters, and both can be a royal bitch at times. And Karma decided to come down on Alma a little bit tough. And Alma has been indicted on, I think, 15 felony charges for embezzlement, tax fraud, and basically, corruption. So Alma, sorry that Karma caught up with you, but Justice is going to have her turn next.
But wait, there's more. And Amy, there's a point too that we're coming to. We actually have points occasionally on this show, right? The point being is that things like what you're doing, and let's get to the punchline about the SEIU union, okay? Alma Hernandez had been under investigation. And by the way, it looks like her husband kind of forgot to report about 1.4 million of income that they kind of sort of took out of the political PAC. Oops, it's a rounding error. Could happen to anybody. Well, actually not to me and Oren and you, because we don't have 1.4 million, but pretending we did, I could see it happening. But anyway, what the interesting part is to exactly the cause that you're doing is the police department and people that you go with, you talk to, and the causes you're trying to do, the things that can really bring out, like with Nathan Fletcher, I'm going to call it the evil and lack of transparency, really got amplified in the story about Alma Hernandez. Because oddly enough, these indictments were not even from the federal government, like what just happened in Los Angeles. They happened to be from, a drum roll please, Tim, from Rob Bonta, the Attorney General, who was handpicked by Gavin Newsom after Xavier Becerra went to Washington. Now, how strange is this that news did not get released from Gavin's biggest donor in his Defend the Crown campaign until after the recall election? And how strange
that may have swayed the election, Mike. We can't have that. We can't have Hunter Biden's laptop floating around in the news cycles. We can't have Alma Hernandez corruption floating around in the news cycles affecting the outcome of our great elections. Now, can we? We can't keep the public informed. We have to suppress that information. We have to keep it, tucked under, because God forbid the public make an informed decision. And I just want to say, Amy, you held your own and you did an amazing job, because I thought for sure you were going to tell Nathan Hernandez or Nathan Fletcher to sit down and SDFU.
And we don't know that she didn't. It's just not captured on film, or let's not get carried away here. And by the way, before we go on, I want to make it clear, very clear about what Oren just said. I am on a laptop in a hotel room tonight, but it is not for the press watching this Hunter Biden's. But Amy, going back to reopen San Diego, right? You kind of left out the part. Oren and I got started in this because we just got ticked off about not being able to recall a senator called Kamala Harris, which it looks like they might be able to do in New Jersey. What stimulated you to action? Because us that do this we're obviously a little bit fired up with warped minds. What fires you up, and why is your mind warped?
I think my biggest aha moment was when Gavin Newsom shut down the beaches. And I'll never forget when the beaches were reopened here in San Diego. I actually brought my 10-year-old to the beach, and he had his boogie board and he went straight to the waves. And I went to the sand and I was going to put down my chair when a San Diego lifeguard actually approached me and he said, "You can't sit here." And I'm like, huh? And he's like, "Well, you can go down the shore and sit where I can't see you." And I said, "But then you can't see my son," right? And he goes, "Well, you're going to have to stay in motion." So for 90 minutes that day, so I could comply with these COVID rules, I actually just went side to side for 90 minutes. And it was
So your boy could play in the waves.
so he could play in the waves, and I complied. Well, 2 weeks later, see where I live, 2 miles behind exactly where I'm sitting is La Mesa, California. And this was May of 2020. Again, the beaches had just been reopened just 2 weeks before, and we had riots, and 3 buildings were actually burned down. And I can remember seeing Gavin Newsom applaud the protests and the riots for one group and condemn them for another. You know, the LA Times actually came out with an article. I was surprised. It actually came out that Gavin Newsom had readied fighter jets to do flybys over anyone that was doing any reopen protests. But here's what really got me. It was all of these public health officials, all these tyrannical little rulers that the governor had set up to go after all of us. And they said, you can get COVID if you attend a reopen rally, but you won't get COVID if you attend a Black Lives Matter protest or riot. And really, that's when I woke up. And for me, I think just like a lot of people, you struggle with just intense, I'll admit it, intense feelings of anger towards Gavin Newsom. And I'll never forget standing in the middle of my kitchen and making a vow. If it's the last thing I do, I am going to hold Gavin Newsom accountable for what he's done to California. And that's how really Reopen San Diego was born. And I have to say, people will say, well, what have you really done? And, you know, we're still under this horrible tyranny. Well, you know, we've been holding the line in San Diego County. We don't have vaccine passports like San Francisco and Los Angeles. And, you know, our schools did open up faster than Los Angeles did and San Francisco. And as far as these mandates go, right now, the call to action for everybody is December 1st in the city of San Diego, Mayor Todd Gloria, which is just Gavin Newsom's little puppet mayor here in San Diego, he wants to fire 1,000 first responders 3 weeks before Christmas because they won't submit to a vaccine mandate. It's utterly ridiculous. Many of these officers I've spoken to personally, they were out there on the front lines when the rest of us were watching Netflix and ordering stuff from Amazon, right? And we were doing the stay home, stay safe thing. They were out there on the front lines protecting us. And you know what? A lot of them did actually already get COVID and they recovered. There were absolutely no hospitalizations or deaths among San Diego police officers or firefighters or lifeguards. So anyway, they want to be able to use their natural immunity.
You know,
So Amy, is there a rally that we're planning around December 1st in support of the officers that are going to be displaced?
So as you know, there are like 1,000 fires in California right now. Every time we turn on the news or look at our phones in the morning, we're just getting sucker punched by Gavin Newsom and all of his little puppets throughout the state of California. So we're fighting on all different fronts. So we had the press conference, Protecting the Protectors, on Friday, October 22nd. And you saw the video earlier, and that was 500 people came out to support them. We actually plan to have another press conference for our first responders. But here's what else we're doing too. Gavin Newsom's coming for our kids. And so we have been doing walkout rallies throughout the state. And the next one is actually going to be on November 15th. So
November what?
It's going to be Monday, November 15th. And we are encouraging people in acts of civil disobedience, peaceful ones, because we need to send a message to Sacramento. And that seems to get their attention when
And where is this?
not
Where is the rally on the 15th? Is that at the Capitol?
There will be one at the state capitol, but there will be rallies and walkouts throughout the state. I know of one already planned here in San Diego. It will be at Balboa Park and the Oregon Pavilion at 8 a.m. Parents, you're welcome to bring your kids. I know I'll be bringing my 10-year-old. We have to hold the line in San Diego County. So we are literally punching back in every way. And you know what? We learned from you guys. We're not on the defense. We are on the offense. And we are on the offense with whistleblowers speaking out. And that's really sending a message, not only here, but our videos have gone viral and they've gone national and international.
You know,
you're making an impact.
And
Well,
an
you
impact
guys,
is
you're the inspiration.
an impact is made by individuals. You know, let me add something here to show how much an impact. And tonight, again, I want everybody out there thinking, because Warren and mine's phones have been lighting up today because we sent out the so-called press release about what we're doing tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the Capitol. That is going to be live streamed. But if you're in the area, come down to the Capitol 11 a.m. I think we forgot to throw that in. But to understand what Amy started, what Orrin and I started, and everybody else, let me tell you how powerful. We had a woman, Paulette, on our show about 2 months ago now. Okay. It's important to something that you just said, Amy, whether you know it or not, is when Gavin first came out, the fighter jets were going over and we weren't allowed to assemble. Stay in your homes, stay in your homes, stay in your homes. We weren't allowed to gather for political protests. That was actually right in the California Health Code that was listed as an advisory. The woman Paulette Atoir, I believe, and I'm going to mispronounce her last name because I do. Yeah, that one. Actually took a case to Supreme Court. And in that case she took, she said, isn't that kind of our First Amendment right? That actually, right after the time you're talking about, this single person, Paulette, California actually changed their health code that said, well, you also have the right to gather for a protest. And I think that's really important to note here, that we as individuals, as we gather at the Capitol, is what you do, really do make a difference. And the more, I know again, I talk about this all the time, the splinter groups, the little pockets of resistance that we have. But the more we all gather together in one big group, it is, last I checked, our government. And as tomorrow they want to take away our right to fire them from their jobs, okay? People, what Amy has done, putting her posterior on the line for no other reason than she cares, means all of you out there watching tonight can do something too. Whether you write, whether you gather, whatever you do, have your precipitating moment. And I think that's really important, because my phone has been filled today with a lot of good stuff, probably like Orrin's, but also a lot of rants, right, Orrin? People come up to like, there's election fraud. Like, well, what are you going to do? They ask me. I get this asked, Orrin does too, 20 times a day. What are you going to do? And my polite reply is, well, what do you think you should do?
Mike, I have some input on that.
I'm not through talking, Orrin. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
You paused long enough. I cut my way in. And Amy, if you don't know any better with Mike and I, you have to have a sharp edge to cut your way into the conversation. It's words in edgewise between Mike and Orrin.
We're kind of polite tonight, Amy, because you're here.
Bring a machete.
That's right. So what I was getting at was the crap, Mike. You made my mind slip a gear now. Okay, carry on.
Okay,
Boy,
so we were talking about voter fraud.
No, he was talking about people doing something.
Back to voter fraud. The response that I had given was basically, you have to cast your vote in order for your vote to be changed. That's what the complaint is. Votes were changed. One vote for another, right? Okay. So when I bring up the fact that there were 6 million people that voted for Trump in 2020 and only 4 million came out to vote for the recall, in favor of the recall, where the hell were those 2 million other folks that could have changed the outcome of the election. Where were they? I'm sure if you voted for Trump in 2020, you weren't a fond fan of Gavin Newsom. And those 2 million people that sat it out, the results of the election sit squarely in their lap. Voter apathy is far more dangerous to our process than voter fraud. And the numbers show it.
Yeah, and I want to bring up too, it's interesting. I was surprised, actually, I don't know why I'm continually surprised by the press narrative versus reality, but in the SOS document today, understand, again, Gavin Newsom got elected in the recall. Nothing to see here. It's a bit suspicious. But there's 22 million registered voters. We're not going down that rabbit hole, everybody. But 54%, 52%, 12 million plus are the only ones that voted in the recall election. Now, the reason that's important to note is because, again, the LA Times, and they're really in my sights right now, because, again, the LA Times, that I'm going to go ahead and say it, they're more than leftist bias. I'm starting to sound like Eric Early. They are a leftist rag. They have a circulation now down to 200,000, yet they're quoted all the time. 200,000 is not a very big number in a county where they operate with 10 million people, yet they're quoted all the time. And then we hear there's a 62% turnout. And it looks like there was a 51% turnout. So all of you out there saying, well, Amy's got it, Orrin's got it, what can I do about it? The least you can do is vote, okay? Vote, vote, vote. Everything that Amy's trying to change out there, okay, all this corruption that's running through the system, if you don't vote, you can't do anything. And we do these town halls to keep people highly educated about the swamp, which is in front of you. It's right there, but you're not looking. Amy, let me ask you a question. And I'm going to say a really bad word again. Nathan Fletcher. Who is Nathan Fletcher's wife?
That Lorena Gonzalez.
Yes, and most
is in the assembly.
Really?
Yeah.
And if let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Who happened to be the author of AB5, which has caused so much stress across California?
That would be Lorena Gonzalez.
That would be. And don't you find it a bit strange that Nathan Fletcher, who, by the way, or in case you don't remember, Nathan.
Oh, I do. He was the guy that labeled us as a California coup. And before we get too far off track, I want to respond to Zeb, who is making some comments on the feed. Zeb, we're not blaming the voters. We're blaming the asshats who sat home and didn't vote. Okay,
correct.
It's those people who are the problem. It's those people who allowed this to continue, and Gavin Newsom, and they're the reason Gavin Newsom is still in office, because they failed to act. And I've said recently, and I'm going to say it again, I'm going to say it loudly, voting is an American right. It's your patriotic duty. And if you don't, you are neither of the above.
And I also want to add too, and Zeb, you've got some good points there, but by the way, when we talk about sending it out, most of this data today, and yes, I'm old. I used to go to the public library. Remember those? Now they're populated by the homeless, but I used to go there. Okay. And I used to have to look up this information. The SOS website has all the information on there. Secrets.org has the donors on there. Ballotpedia has the voting information on there by district. Look, if you're home watching television not everyone, I get it, is going to be comfortable doing what Amy does, because Amy is a true warrior. Not comfortable doing what Orrin and I do. Well, I'm not that bright. I can speak for him, because we're going to be out there at the Capitol tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera. But we do ask that help spread the information. Okay, go look up some of it on your own. We have the right to free speech, which also means free thinking. And what the politicians want, Amy, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. what you're really saying is we could probably make our own decisions. You're probably smart enough to decide whether or not to take your kid to the beach, even though COVID apparently can body surf, has a clock, and all those good things, right? But you're probably smart enough to do that. You're probably even smart enough to determine what your kids should be learning in school. But we have to take advantage of the information that's available, and they're going to try to bury it on us all the time. Amy, we're going to roll toward the end here, but I want you to tell me, in addition to rallies, what can people do? And I know it's always donate, but donate's a good thing, right, to your organization. And by the way, Amy's one of the few people outside of Warren and myself, of course, that I'm impressed by. Because again, she's taken the bull by the horn. She's done it down in San Diego, which is where, of course, I raised my offspring, if you will. And it's a very expansive, tough county is the best way to put it. It covers a lot of geography. So kudos to you to putting together. But what action items can people do for you besides the walkout on the 15th, which, by the way, Orrin, we are participating up here in Sacramento. We already have a team there. What else can we do to help reopen San Diego?
Well, we have a website that you can go to, reopensd.org, right there, reopensd.org, and you can actually sign up for our newsletter. And we actually have call to actions 4, 5, 6 times a week. Like I said, California's on fire right now, but we have mobilized, and one of the really cool things that we did, we actually had 260 people show up to a San Diego County Board of Supervisors meeting. Again, that made national and international news. We made history. They had never had, in the whole history of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, have 260 people show up. The line was out the building, all the way to the street and around the building. So that's the kind of impact that we're having. We're protecting the protectors. We're protecting our kids. All of these things, really just come to our website, sign up for our newsletter. And you know what? If you feel led, just like Mike was saying, it wouldn't hurt if you'd like to give a little donation too. I actually work full time. I am 100% volunteer for Reopen San Diego. It is our labor of love. It is our passion to bring back democracy and open government and a return to the values of our US Constitution right here in California. And we are making waves. So reopensd.org, that's the biggest ask that I have right now.
Can we get an amen?
An amen. Can I have a hallelujah? That's what you're looking for?
Hallelujah.
Okay. Understand that, again, as Rebuild reopens pop-ups that we will be soon. Lexit, who we had on last week, reopened San Diego. In addition to the initiatives that we're pushing forward, where they're trying to take our rights away to do this, in addition to local recalls, okay, where they're trying to take away our right for local and state recalls. They can't take away yet, or will they try, our right for the pop-ups all over. This, again, is going to be the local kind of, call it, I don't want to say watering hole, the local hanging out place where we are going to have and Rebuild California statewide, trying to unify people like Lexington we had on last week, reopen San Diego. So it's an effect for local politicians and everybody else, places to go. Act, everybody. Acting is really important. Now,
before you wrap it up,
I'm not wrapping it up yet.
I know, but I want to make sure that we have time for Tim's Corner, because it's time.
Well, I was going to go to Tim's Corner.
Tim's ready.
Now, Tim has less
He's
time than
always
before.
got good insight, and I like hearing from him.
We're going to hear from Tim, and we're going to talk more about what we're doing tomorrow, because we haven't been real good at handing out specifics.
There you go.
Okay. So, Tim,
Well, that's what I have in my corner is who's going to be there tomorrow. So tomorrow, outside of Mr. Mike Netter and Orrin Heatley, we're expecting Errol Weber and Mr. Eric Early, who's a candidate for Attorney General. Is there anybody else expected?
I heard Dr. Cordy might show up, but I don't know. He hasn't confirmed with us yet. So
yeah, I'm hearing that rumor too.
Secretary of State
he's always welcome company, and a good guy in your corner if you're in a scrap, from what I understand.
Yeah. So
Secretary of State candidate, Orrin?
He is running for
No.
Rachel Ham. So Cordy Williams is running for state senator, and Rachel Ham is a candidate for Secretary of State, and we expect her on the steps with us, and we'll hear a little bit about what she has to say.
So the rally starts at 11 o'clock. So be sure to get there a little early so you can get some parking and make your way to the Capitol.
Absolutely. And again, Eric Early's going to be there running for Attorney General. We are tired of pulling punches. So when you hear Eric talk, I talk, Orrin talk, we're going to start hitting them between the eyes. And I know you might say, well, you've been doing that already. Well, we have, but frankly, California, we've got not that much to lose right now because, Tim, I always got to compliment Tim Holiday. One, because he's better looking than me, but also because these great videos that he puts on at the beginning, that was a very telling video with the professors in there talking about the difference between revising and changing the California Constitution. And they're more than walking the line. They're squashing the line of our rights blatantly, waiting for us to challenge it. And before we wrap up, I want to be clear on something. And Orrin and I had a slight online disagreement last night. Orrin may not even remember this, but you, the public, are smart enough to know this. There's three things that we direct democracy have the ability to do.
That's six.
That's six, Mike.
I did three twice. Three. Or is that, or you're seeing double? I don't know. Okay, three.
You're counting like Gavin.
Well, yeah, what the hell? It's like he does the budget. We have $60 million.
He's counting like Dominion is what he's counting.
Yeah, I'm counting like Dominion. Okay, three things. I'm not going to put the hand signal up. Who's got the time?
Well, if you do it this way, that means something else. I
understand. Recall state and local officials, the recall process under direct duress right now. We have a good recall process that we, the people, voted in. We have the right to do initiatives, which means we have the right to put our own laws on the books. We also have the rights to do referendums. Now, understand
to self-govern.
Right. Understand that means, and there is one on the ballot that the tobacco companies put out there. You say, well, they have an initiative on the ballot. No, they're trying to stay the law against selling menthol cigarettes. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with it. So when they put things on the books, we, the people, have the right to do direct democracy to take them off the books. But we have to keep the heat on. So we have the ability to self-govern. And what we're doing tomorrow, please, if you're in the area, come to Sacramento. We will be live streaming on my Facebook page, on the Rebuild Facebook pages. You can watch it. But if you're not working, well, if you're working, tell your boss you're on a long break. Watch it on Facebook Live. If you're not working, or even if you are working, I don't care. Take the day off, but come to the Capitol if you're in the area and show them outside the window of our house that there's
drag your ass down there, make a sign that says "Keep your hands off." That's what it's all about.
Yeah, never mind. I'm going to leave that last line alone. There's too much to do with it. Amy,
hands off our rights.
Yes, thank you. Hands off our rights. So, everybody out there. Each week, we're trying to show you a group, a candidate, a subject, something that specifically we can do to rebuild our state brick by brick, and to rebuild our state. That means everybody everybody up and down this entire state, regardless of political persuasion, who you are, what church you go to, everybody needs to carry a brick. And that brick is a vote. That brick is your voice. That brick is your pen. We need to get out there, but you need to participate. And for everybody watching this, spread the video. Tell your friends, go to Reopen San Diego. Come down, go to our new website, Rebuild California. Because remember, everybody, if we don't rebuild it, they're going to tear it down. Thank you and good night. I hope to see you tomorrow, and we'll definitely see you here next week.
Hallelujah.
Good night, everyone.